Life becomes lighter when we choose not to carry a weight on our conscience. But the path to get there is painful.
You feel like you're drowning in action. Your calendar is a battlefield. Every hour a skirmish you've been told you have to win. Your mind is a relentless engine of tasks, obligations, and worries. You believe that to fall behind is to fail, that to rest is to rust. This is one of the great lies of the modern age, and it's a lie that ensures you will never hold real power. We are a culture obsessed with the virtue of doing. We celebrate the hustle, we praise the grind, and we idolize the executive who answers emails at 3 a.m. We're told that the key to success is to outwork everyone, to act faster, to fill every single moment. But this frantic activity isn't a sign of strength. It's a symptom of weakness. It's the flailing of someone who doesn't know how to swim, mistaking splashing for progress. What if the path to victory wasn't paved with more effort, but with less? What if one of history's most notorious strategists knew that the most powerful move is often no move at all? Niccolò Machiavelli, the Florentine diplomat and philosopher, understood a secret that the relentlessly busy will never grasp. In a world of impulsive actors, true power lies not in constant action, but in calculated restraint. This isn't about being lazy. It's about making your inaction more decisive than your opponent's most frantic efforts. It's the art of strategic patience. This isn't motivational fluff. This is realism. Machiavelli's world was one of betrayal, shifting alliances, and sudden violence. He knew that impulsive action, driven by ego or anxiety, was a death sentence. Survival, and indeed dominance, required a different kind of intelligence. It required the discipline to observe, the courage to wait, and the wisdom to strike only when the moment was perfect. Here, we will deconstruct the 4 Machiavellian laws of strategic inaction. These aren't tips for better time management. They are fundamental principles of power that will give you a decisive advantage in leadership, negotiations, and your career. You will learn why the person who acts less, but with greater precision, will always dominate the person who is always in motion. Section 1. The first law, the fox and the trap. Master observation before action. The first law of strategic inaction is to master the art of observation. The world tells you to be a lion, bold, aggressive, charging headfirst at your goals. Machiavelli would say this is foolish. The lion is strong, but it often walks directly into traps laid by weaker, more patient hunters. True power, he understood, begins not with the lion's strength, but with the fox's cunning. The fox doesn't charge, the fox watches. In our modern obsession with speed, we've forgotten the immense advantage of seeing the whole board before making a move. We're praised for being action-oriented, but a bias for action is often just a bias for error. It's a compulsion to do something, simply to quiet the anxiety of doing nothing. The truly powerful person can withstand that anxiety. They can sit in the discomfort of stillness, knowing that every moment they spend observing is a moment their competitors are spending, revealing their own weaknesses. Think of it like this. Your competitors and rivals are constantly talking, not just with their words, but with their actions. Every hasty decision, every impulsive reaction, every nervous email is a signal. They are telling you what they fear, what they want, and where they are vulnerable. The person who is busy acting can't hear these signals. They're too preoccupied with the sound of their own movement. But the one who is still, who is observing, gathers this intelligence freely. They let others exhaust themselves, make mistakes, and reveal their entire strategy, all while they conserve their energy. This is not passivity. It's active, aggressive patience. It's the disciplined choice to gather information when everyone else is acting on an incomplete picture. The most powerful historical example of this is the Roman general Quintus Fabius Maximus. In 217 BC, Rome faced its greatest crisis. The brilliant Carthaginian general Hannibal Barca had crossed the Alps and inflicted devastating defeats on the Roman legions. In an open battle, he seemed invincible. The Roman consuls, driven by pride, repeatedly met Hannibal on the battlefield and were repeatedly annihilated. Panic gripped Rome. In this moment of desperation, they appointed Fabius as dictator. And what did he do? He did the one thing that looked like cowardice. He refused to fight. He understood that a direct confrontation with a superior military genius was suicide. So, he adopted a strategy of calculated inaction. His legions shadowed Hannibal's army, keeping to the high ground where Hannibal's cavalry was useless. He harassed their supply lines and engaged only in small, favorable skirmishes. He never gave Hannibal the decisive battle he craved. The Romans were furious. They mocked him, calling him cunctator, the delayer. The political pressure to do something was immense. They craved a glorious victory, not a slow, grinding war of attrition. They wanted the lion, not the fox. Eventually, the politicians in Rome had enough. Fabius was replaced by consuls who promised to crush Hannibal in a single, massive battle. They assembled the largest army Rome had ever fielded and marched to meet Hannibal on the plains of Cannae. The result was the single greatest disaster in Roman military history. The army was surrounded and utterly destroyed. Only then did the Romans understand the genius of Fabius. Their frantic need for action had led them to ruin. Fabius, by doing less, had been preserving the very strength of Rome. His inaction was a weapon that Hannibal, for all his genius, could not defeat. So how do you apply this? First, consciously fight the urge to react immediately. When a crisis erupts at work, or you get a provocative email, your instinct is to respond instantly. Train yourself to pause. That pause isn't empty time. It's the space where strategy is born. In that pause, you ask, what's really happening here? What information do I lack? Second, reframe your perspective on problems. Many issues that seem urgent are, in fact, distractions. You'll find that many so-called problems resolve themselves if you simply refuse to jump on every fire. People's priorities shift, misunderstandings clear up, or they find their own solutions. This conserves your energy for the fires that truly threaten the entire structure. A reactive person is a slave to the urgent. A strategic person is a master of the important. Finally, practice active observation. In meetings, try to be the person who speaks last. Let everyone else reveal their positions and their biases. Most people are so uncomfortable with silence, they will rush to fill it with information you can use. When you do speak, your words will carry more weight because they're built on a foundation of complete understanding, not impulsive reaction. The world is full of lions, rushing to their own destruction. Be the fox. Watch, wait, and learn. Your restraint is not weakness. It's the cultivation of a decisive advantage. Section 2. The second law. The economy of force. Make your action count. The second law flows directly from the first. Once you've mastered observation, you must practice the economy of force. This isn't just about military force, but the force of your will, your capital, your attention, and your time. The busy person squanders their force on 1,000 trivialities. They're like an army that fires its cannons at every shadow, only to find their ammunition spent when the real enemy appears. Machiavelli understood that power isn't measured by the volume of your activity, but by the impact of your action. A leader who is constantly intervening and meddling doesn't appear powerful. They appear weak, insecure. They reveal a lack of control. A truly powerful leader, by contrast, is known for their deliberate interventions. Their actions are rare, but when they occur, they change the entire landscape. This principle is about maximizing your leverage. The amateur tries to change a system by pushing everywhere at once. The master identifies the single pressure point, where minimum effort will produce maximum effect. Finding that point requires the patience to observe. Acting on it requires the discipline to ignore everything else. This is the essence of strategic inaction. It's not about doing nothing forever. It's about doing nothing until you can do the one thing that matters. Think about the most effective CEOs. They often aren't the ones in every meeting or micromanaging every department. The best leaders practice an economy of force. When Satya Nadella became CEO of Microsoft in 2014, the company was seen by many as a stagnating giant. Public records as of 2026. There was immense pressure on him to announce a flurry of immediate, radical changes. Instead, he practiced strategic patience. He spent his first months listening and observing. Public records as of 2026. He didn't waste his energy on superficial reorganizations. He waited. And when he finally acted, his moves were targeted and profound. He shifted the company's entire culture and made a monumental pivot to cloud computing. Public records as of 2026. These weren't 100 small actions. They were a few massive, high-leverage decisions that redefined Microsoft. His restraint at the beginning made his eventual actions all the more powerful. In a more classically Machiavellian sense, consider an executive in a treacherous corporate environment. Imagine they strategically withhold critical information from a rival before an important meeting. They do nothing, allowing their competitor to walk into the boardroom unprepared. The rival falters and appears incompetent. Only then does our executive step in, presenting the very information they held back, appearing as the savior who can solve the problem. This is a cold, calculated use of the economy of force. Instead of fighting a constant, exhausting battle, they conserve their energy, withhold a key asset, and wait for the moment of maximum impact to deploy it. How can you apply this? First, learn to say no. Your time and attention are your most valuable resources. Every time you say yes to a low-impact task, you're effectively saying no to a high-impact one. Saying no to a good opportunity preserves your capacity to say yes to a truly great one. Second, abandon the idea that being busy is a status symbol. The person who constantly complains about how busy they are isn't signaling their importance, they're signaling their lack of control. Ruthlessly distinguish between work and progress. Progress is a result. Work is just the input. Find the 20% of your actions that generate 80% of your results, and have the courage to neglect the rest. Third, when you decide to act, act decisively. Machiavelli was clear on this point. If you must injure an opponent, do it so completely that you don't have to fear their revenge. A hesitant action is the worst of all worlds. It alerts your enemies without neutralizing them. When you've observed, identified the key leverage point, and conserved your energy, your action must be like a lightning strike. Sudden, overwhelming, and final. The force of your action is magnified by the stillness that preceded it. Section 3. The third law. Taming Fortuna. Use inaction to prepare. The third law deals with Machiavelli's famous concepts of virtù and fortuna. Fortuna, or fortune, is the unpredictable, chaotic force of the universe. It's the sudden storm, the unexpected market crash, the lucky break for your rival. Machiavelli saw fortuna as a raging river, capable of wiping away everything in its path. Most people are at its mercy. Virtù is often translated as virtue. But Machiavelli's meaning was different. It had little to do with moral goodness. For him, virtue is human skill, decisiveness, and the ability to impose your will on the world. It's the quality that allows a leader to anticipate and master fortuna. So what's the connection? Machiavelli argued that fortuna governs about half of our lives, but the other half is up to us. The strategic leader uses periods of calm, periods of inaction, not to be idle, but to build the dams and embankments that will contain the river of fortuna when it inevitably rages. This is the critical difference between passive waiting and strategic patience. The lazy person does nothing and hopes for the best. They're a victim of fortuna. The strategic person also appears to be doing nothing, but they are actively preparing. They're using the quiet time to gather resources, study enemies, build alliances, and sharpen skills. Their inaction is a form of preparation. Think of the world's greatest investors. Warren Buffett is a master of this. He famously said, "The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient." For long stretches, he does very little. He doesn't chase every hot stock. But he's not being passive. He and his team are using that time to do deep research and wait for the perfect pitch. When fortuna presents a crisis, a market panic that causes a good company's stock to plummet, the impatient sell in a frenzy. But Buffett, having prepared, acts decisively. His fortune is built on long periods of patient preparation, followed by brief moments of decisive action. Machiavelli warned that people often fail because they can't change their methods to suit the times. A person who finds success through bold action will continue to act that way, even when circumstances call for caution. They're ruined because they can't adapt. The master of strategic inaction, however, develops flexibility. Because they aren't committed to a course of action, they remain free to adapt. How do you apply this? First, reconceptualize your downtime. Time spent not actively doing something isn't wasted time. It's preparation time. Use it to build your virtue. Read books outside your field. Acquire a new skill. Nurture your network before you need it. Your goal is to build such a deep reservoir of knowledge that when the flood of fortuna comes, you're the one person prepared. Second, engage in active scenario planning. When things are calm, ask yourself, what are the biggest threats to my career or my business? What if my main source of income disappeared tomorrow? What if a new technology disrupts my entire industry? By facing these possibilities in your mind during a period of inaction, you drain them of their emotional power. If they happen, you won't panic. You'll execute a plan. Third, build robustness into your life. The person living paycheck to paycheck has no room for strategic inaction. They are a slave to fortuna. By building a financial buffer, developing multiple skills, and creating a strong support network, you give yourself the most precious resource of all, the freedom to wait. The freedom to say no to a bad opportunity and wait for the perfect moment. Section 4. The fourth law, the gravity of silence. Control the narrative through restraint. The final law is the use of silence as a weapon. In a world saturated with noise and the pressure to have an opinion on everything, silence has become uncomfortable. And in that discomfort lies an incredible source of power. The person who can master silence controls the psychological space of any interaction. Machiavelli noted that a prince must be a great pretender and dissembler. Silence is the ultimate tool for this. The person who talks constantly is an open book. Their strengths, weaknesses, and plans are all laid bare. They are predictable and therefore controllable. The person who is silent, however, is an enigma. Their stillness creates a void, and other people, desperate to resolve the uncertainty, will rush to fill that void with their own words, their own anxieties, and their own secrets. This isn't about being shy. It's about a strategic withholding of words. In a negotiation, after you make an offer, the most powerful thing you can do is remain silent. Let the offer hang in the air. The amateur will immediately start talking again, justifying the offer, signaling their anxiety. The master embraces the silence. They know the other side, uncomfortable with the pause, is likely to speak first, and in doing so, may reveal their bottom line or their willingness to concede. This extends far beyond formal negotiations. In leadership, silence communicates confidence. The leader who feels the need to speak first and dominate the conversation signals insecurity. The leader who is comfortable with silence, who asks a question and then simply waits, projects authority. That silence gives their team space to think more deeply. It shows the leader is confident enough to allow the right solution to emerge. Silence also allows you to control the emotional tempo. When emotions run high and accusations are thrown, the instinct is to fire back. This is a losing game. A strategic pause acts as a reset button. It breaks the cycle of action and reaction. Your opponent, expecting a fight, is left facing a wall of calm. This can be deeply unsettling for them, often causing them to either escalate and reveal their irrationality, or back down in the face of your composure. How do you apply the gravity of silence? First, practice the deliberate pause. When asked a difficult question, don't rush to answer. Take a breath. Make eye contact. Let a few seconds pass. This small act makes your eventual answer seem more considered and impactful. It signals that your words are not cheap. Second, use silence to gather intelligence. Ask an open-ended question in a meeting, like, "What are your thoughts on this project's biggest risk?" And then lean back and say nothing. The initial responses might be superficial, but if you hold the silence, the deeper, more honest answers will begin to surface. Third, learn to stop talking once you've made your point. Many people undermine their own authority by over-explaining. State your case. Make your offer. Give your answer. Then stop. Let the weight of your words do the work. In a world drowning in noise, silence is a statement. It's a statement of confidence, control, and power. The person who speaks less hears more, while others are busy revealing themselves with every unnecessary word. You will be gathering information, building pressure, and shaping the narrative without saying a thing. These principles are about understanding the deep-seated dynamics of human strategy. They're about trading the fool's gold of frantic activity for the real currency of power: deliberate, calculated, and impactful action. We've learned to be the fox, not the lion, mastering observation. We've seen the importance of the economy of force, saving our energy for the moments that truly matter. We've explored how to tame Fortuna, using inaction to relentlessly prepare. And we've unlocked the gravity of silence, controlling the battlefield by wielding restraint as a weapon. The modern world screams at you to do more, to move faster, to be constantly on. This is a trap. It keeps you occupied with the trivial and ensures you remain a pawn in someone else's game. True power is found not in the storm of activity, but in the eye of the hurricane, a point of stillness from which you can observe the chaos and choose the perfect moment to shape it. So, I will leave you with a final question. Look at your life, your career, your goals. Where are you acting out of a desperate need for motion? Where are you flailing instead of swimming? And what hidden advantages would you unlock if you just had the courage to stop, to observe, and to wait?